What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Rebel Daily Drive. My name is Mike Cooper. This is the Scarlet Standard, and today we are hitting the full reset button. Over the last few episodes, we have been dropping roster updates, reacting to portal news, building on previous talk about how the seasons went and past conversations. Now it's time, I think, with the portal opening, that we take a time to take a deep breath, lay out exactly where UNLV men's basketball stands right now, and in one clean play, because the portal is just kind of moving at a very fast pace. The roster is going to continue to flip with 3 undecided players right now and a lot of spots to fill. And before we can talk about what comes next, we need to be completely honest about where we are and what this program actually needs to do to change the future so we can get back to the NCAA tournament. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The roster as it stands right now, the honest evaluation of what this season revealed, the rebounding problem that nobody's talked about loudly enough, that's been in my Twitter mentions, the NIL reality that's challenged, that's both a challenge and a real opportunity for this program, and the NCAA tournament urgency that should be driving every single decision this program makes this offseason. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about the roster right now. Here's where UNLV stands as of today, April 6th, or tomorrow, April 7th. Whenever you may watch this video, this is where the roster stands. Our graduated players are Kamani Hamilton, Howie Fleming, Al Green, and Walter Brown. As of right now, who has entered the transfer portal is Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn, Miles Shea, Nas Cunningham, Mason Abaton, and Jacob Benarby. The only one confirmed returning player is Tyrin Jones, and with no announcement yet, but we should expect something in the next probably 24 hours or so, is Isaac Williamson, Laji Dembele, and Emmanuel Steffen. That's it. We have one confirmed returner, 3 players with no announcement, 5 in the portal, and 4 graduated. He's also going to fill up the 15 roster spots this year. He only filled 13 scholarship roster spots last year. So I want to be upfront. By the time you listen to this, that no announcement group could look different. The portal season is moving very fast. Check all of our socials, check our website for the latest. But as of now, April 6th, this is exactly where we stand. Now let's talk about what all that means. Who just walked out and what just walked out the door? I want to put some real numbers to the production the program just lost, because I think it's easy to rattle off names and move on without fully appreciating what some of these guys meant to the program, and in some cases, what they were becoming by the end of the year before they finally either decided to enter the portal or they graduated. Starting with the 4 graduated seniors of Kamani Hamilton, 12.8 points per game, 4.9 rebounds per game. He started all 35 games this year, shot 47% from the field. The most experienced forward you could say on the roster. Versatile enough to score inside, step out, hit threes, and facilitate when needed. Dropped 27 on Air Force, 24 on Utah State, 23 on Wyoming in the Mountain West Tournament. He was the legitimate second option on a team that desperately needed one when he could stay out of foul trouble, basically. But now that's gone. Howie Fleming, 9 points, 6.3 rebounds, 3.6 assists per game. Fleming led the team in assists this season. On a roster that kind of struggled all year with ball movement and offensive creativity, he kind of turned into connective tissue. The guy who made reads, found open men, stabilized possessions when things started to break down late in the season. He had 12 assists in the Utah State game on March 3rd. He had 2 triple-doubles this year. That kind of playmaking from a forward is rare, especially in this day and age college basketball, and that's out the door. Al Green, he was kind of an up-and-down player for the Rebels last year, 4.4 points per game, but I want to be honest about what his season actually looked like. Green was in and out of rotation all year. Some nights he was a factor. Some nights he barely touched the floor. Showed he had his moments where he could score with given the opportunity. He had a 13-point game against Grand Canyon. He had a 12-point game against Colorado State. But a consistent role never kind of fully developed for him under Josh Pastner. His departure does not leave a massive production hole, but it removes veteran depth and a body that understood the program, what Pastner wanted and could be counted on when his number was called on. Walter Brown is the last senior, 3.8 points per game, 2.8 rebounds a game on the stat sheet. But here's what the numbers don't tell you with Walter Brown. Brown stepped up when this team needed him most, late in the season and in the postseason when he was logging real meaningful minutes, and he was delivering. He had 36 minutes in the NIT loss at Tulsa. He had 34 minutes in the Mountain West Tournament where he also grabbed 10 rebounds against Wyoming. He had 32 minutes against San Diego State. By the end of the year, he became a legitimate rotation piece and a starter who earned his spot throughout the season. He wasn't a star, but a guy that the team relied on when things kind of got hard. And now he's gone as well. Now we hit the portal. Obviously, we know Dre's in the portal. He scored 724 points this season out of the team's 2,671 points they scored on the year, which is 26% of UNLV's offense, which is, very high percentage. He averaged 20.7 points per game, shot nearly 50% from the field, 41% from three. He was not just the best player on the team. He was the offense. He was the engine. He was the star. And, he had his 42-point game against Reno that everybody remembers, his 36-point game and the massive comeback at Boise State. And when UNLV needed a bucket, they needed anything, it went through Dre. Everybody in the building knew that. And now that's in the portal. He's going to go get paid, and he deserves every penny that he's going to get from probably a Power 4 program. Miles Shea, obviously, we've hit on him a little bit in the last episode that we did. Hit and miss. Never played a minute for UNLV. He had very high expectations. It was expected to be the team's starting point guard, the organizer, the true playmaker that the roster desperately needed all season long, but he missed multiple. He had multiple foot injuries, rebroke the same foot twice, and he missed the whole season. Didn't play a minute in a Rebel uniform. So it's kind of interesting to see that he hit the portal. But, maybe it could have been mutual, could have been this, could have been that. Who knows what the true story is? You have different agents, different people talking to you in your ear. So, good for him if he can go find a good fit. Was hoping he would stay, but, things happen, conversations happen, and sometimes you just realize not really the right fit. Could be the right fit. I don't know. We never got to see it in person, so nothing but the best to Miles Shea. Nas Cunningham, he averaged 5 points a game last year. Now, obviously, all the hype was around him coming in from Alabama. He had some real flashes on offense, but he really struggled on defense. So he had some clashes with Josh Pastner. Couldn't get in the rotation. When Rebels needed scoring, they tried him in the rotation. He had 25 against Chattanooga, 13 against Reno. He had a good game against New Mexico, but he never really could carve out his role. And he's going to need to go to a school that he can get points. It's probably going to be a lower school than UNLV, but he needs to go find a place where he can just go shine. And I don't know, with Pastner trying to get to the NCAA tournament, that was the right fit. Let's talk about Mason Audubon. I'm not sure what happened here. Mason got hurt. So Mason redshirted this year. He did not play a game. Mason got hurt right before the Washington exhibition game. He was expected to be in the rotation this year. Or, well, at least get some minutes, especially with the early injuries, and see what he can do. I don't know what happened between him and Pastner. I'm not going to try to play insider because I don't know. But he sat out the whole season. He decided to enter the portal. He was a 6'6" Las Vegas native. He's gonna go find a place where he can play. He's probably gonna, out of high school, he had Reno and Colorado State, so he may end up at a school like that. May end up at a little lower level school than what UNLV and Reno and those schools like that are. So we'll see what happens to him. Pastner's in a mode where he needs to win now, and if Mason wanted to have a chance to play, he may not have cracked a rotation next year. We don't know. We're never really going to have the chance to know. So that's going to be very interesting to see where he ends up and what kind of role he gets next year at the program that he's at. And then now Jacob Benarby, who entered the portal today. Benarby, obviously showed the most improvement of a Rebel in a long time. He was definitely not the same player that he was by the end of the season, that he was at the beginning of the year. He was the lone holdover from the Kevin Kruger era. So now there's no players on the roster that played for Kevin Kruger and Josh Pastner. He really took a step forward. He averaged 5.4 points per game, 4.8 rebounds to end the season. But, he had a 15 rebound game against GCU. He played 34 minutes and had 15 points against Reno. He stepped in big moments down the stretch. He was in and out of the starting rotation, but he was a very reliable piece for Josh Pastner. And I thought that he was going to stay and be a building block, but I've heard conflicting things. I don't know what sources are true at this point. Obviously, I'm still a little gun shy with the stuff that happened with the Dre stuff. So what I've heard, that it was anywhere from he felt he wanted more money. Maybe he's testing his value and going to come back to UNLV. I'm not sure. But, it doesn't. Players like him who took a big step forward, he has some good film out there. Somebody may probably have told him, go test your value, see what you can get, and maybe come back. I don't know. But it's going to be interesting to see what kind of value he gets and where he ends up and what kind of role he gets next year, or if he ends up deciding to come back, because that could always be a possibility too. You don't know what these coaches and what these, you know, NIL funds and agents and rev share, what they tell these players to do and what they don't do. So we'll see, but that's where we currently stand right now. But which means, Pastor may be standing in the exact same spot where he was when he took the job basically a year ago. One confirmed returner, and that's Tyrin Jones. Everything else is to be determined, except this time there's no grace period of, what happened this year. No inherited mess that he can point to with the coaching era and players moving on. This is his program. These are his players, and they're leaving. So we'll see what he's trying to build, what culture fit he's still trying to build, and where he can go from there. Let's talk about the unconfirmed players that have not made any announcement. What we may still have, what still may be, kind of the wait and see group. There's 3 players that have not announced anything yet. I want to be honest, no announcement. Portal season does not mean they're staying. Every player is evaluating everything right now. Every player is going to have options. They're going to have different people in their ear telling them different things of where they're at. But here's what each of them means to this program if they did come back to UNLV. So let's talk about Isaac Williamson first. He averaged 8.6 points per game last year in 23 minutes. He showed some real good flashes as a freshman. He had 25 against Memphis, 15 against Utah State. He was solid in the NIT. Shot 39% from the field, 33% from 3. Shooting percentages that have to improve that are only going to come over time. The scoring ability is real. He is kind of a tweener guard, but he's going to be a real rotation piece if he stays for Josh Pastner in year 2. Going into year 2, and it'll be his year 2 as well as a sophomore. Talk about Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn. Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn was supposed to be the team starting center this year, which ended up being Emmanuel Steffen for part of the year, ended up being Jacob Benarby for part of the year. But Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn is one of them that's not being talked about a lot. Dembele broke his foot twice this season. He was supposed to be a starter. He's 6'8", 255. He came in from Iowa expecting to be really a big piece to this team. He played 5 games before injury took his season away. He showed physicality and he had some playmaking, and he was really the big in the interior, very physical. He had 9 points, 5 assists against Montana, 9 points, 5 rebounds in the opener against UT Martin while he was still basically hurt, playing injured. He's going to be a real piece of this team before his body kind of betrayed him and he broke his foot. So, and here's what makes this one really interesting. Pastner has been talking about Dembele with genuine excitement. Dembele himself said publicly that he believed he would be the number 2 center in the Mountain West if healthy last year. Think about that for a second. He's essentially saying that if he is healthy next year, with half the Mountain West jumping to the Pac-12, he would be the best center in the Mountain West next year. That's not empty confidence. That's a player who knows what he's capable of and is hungry to prove it. Breaking your foot twice in one season is not just a physical challenge. It's a mental one too. The potential is undeniable. If he comes back healthy and you pair him with Tyrin Jones, he may be the most important returner on this roster outside of Tyrin Jones. And then let's talk about Emmanuel Steffen. He was kind of a mess this year, if I'm putting it bluntly. He is 7 feet 230. He averaged 3.5 points a game, 4.2 rebounds. Everybody knows his 18-10, performance, his first game out against Stanford, and showed what his real potential could be. But he just fell out of rotation, couldn't stay out of foul trouble. He's a major project still. His status is still probably the most uncertain of the 3. We don't know what kind of direction they're going to go with him. Is he coming back? Does he want to come back? Is he going to fit what Pastner's trying to build with this new roster? So it's going to be very interesting to see where they kind of go, what they kind of do, and what basically direction they take with him. All 3 of those still, no announcement yet. I've been obviously checking social media just as much as probably anybody else has, talking to people around that I can talk to and seeing what kind of the gauge is and what's going on. But, I have no read on those 3 at all. We don't know when they're going to say anything, but my assumption is with the portal opening tonight, you'll probably see something tonight or tomorrow. And I know, especially in today's college basketball landscape, hope's not a roster strategy. You need to know what these guys are going to do, so that way you can start, obviously building those pieces around who's staying, who's going, what you have coming back, what pieces fit with what you have coming back. So it's going to be interesting to see where that kind of leads to. What kind of interest do they draw from players over the next couple of days? how quickly the staff moves on the guys that they want. Let's kind of talk about a little bit the rebounding problem that they had last year. I got a lot of comments about rebounding and physicality and Pastner's grit and toughness that he preached all season last year. Something I think is the most important conversation that this program needs to be having that nobody's really talking and addressing loud enough is the rebounding problem. Josh Pastner preached grit and toughness all season long, 4 games, after losses, in press conferences, grit and toughness. That is the identity. That's the Runnin' Rebel brand. That is what he wants UNLV basketball to be built on. So let's take a look at the rebounding numbers from last year. Because rebounding is where grit and toughness actually lives, not in a speech, not in a t-shirt, but on the glass. UNLV grabbed 337 offensive rebounds last year. Their opponents grabbed 389. Their opponents out-rebounded them on offensive glass over a full season. Opponents averaged 35.2 rebounds per game. UNLV averaged 34.7. On a team that's built on grit and toughness, getting out-rebounded, that's not a scheme problem. That's not a size problem. That's a physicality problem, a toughness problem, and a want-to problem. And here's what makes it so damaging. Think about the games that felt winnable, games that slipped away late, games where UNLV played decent defense, got a team into a tough shot, and then watch them, get an offensive rebound and score anyway off a second or third chance. That's not 2 points giving up. That's a broken possession. And that's what kills momentum. And that's what gets your crowd quiet when they should be the loudest they've been all night. When they're feeding into the defense, your team's on a run. That's a run killer. That's a close game in March turning into a loss that cost your team a tournament resume, or even the early season losses like they had last year. That kind of killed their resume early. When you give an opponent 2 or 3 looks on a single possession, you're just not giving up points. You're telling your own team that a great defensive stop might not even matter. You're eroding the very identity that Pastner's trying to build this program on. This is not 1 or 2 bad rebounding nights either. It was a season-long pattern. Game after game, opponents got second chances. They got shots they shouldn't have had. Close games that should have been wins slipped away because UNLV couldn't secure the ball at the rim when it mattered most. Grit and toughness is a great message. It's how every team should be built, but the box score sometimes doesn't lie. And the box score said all season long this team was not tough enough on the glass. And then that has to change, not as a talking point, as a roster construction priority. Because right now, that's the single biggest structural problem this team has. And if it starts with finding somebody mean, nasty, ferocious, kind of like what you guys said in the comments, who boxes out like their season depends on it. Like you said, like every ball matters. Like it's the very last breath that you're gonna take, the very last thing you're gonna see on this earth. Who makes opponents, and you have to have guys who make opponents earn every single second chance point because he's gonna make them pay physically trying to get that rebound. That's where grit and toughness actually lives. So they got to go and find it. They got to go find guys that fit that culture. Let's talk about the NIL reality a little bit. NIL has been a hot topic. People have been talking about it on different podcasts. People have been talking about it. Fox Paloma just did an interview with Harper talking about the NIL reality, the rev share. So let's talk about those kind of things because it's all kind of more complicated than it sounds. Because you can identify every need on a roster perfectly and still not fill a single one of them because you don't have the money to compete. Let's start with what we actually know. The House versus NCAA settlement gave UNLV something they did not have before. More direct control over paying their student athletes through rev sharing. AD, Eric Harper sat down, like I mentioned, with Paloma and addressed this specifically. He said that UNLV wanted to make sure that the platform was seamless, structured, and properly through their foundation so that people who want to give directly to student athletes can actually do it. And that's great. That's great for the program. But you got to get, like Pastner has preached also, you got to get the fundraising, you got to get fans to come out, you got to get people to rally around and back your team. But as Harper went to go on, he was clear in that this is the new era of college athletics. You have to be nimble, you have to be fluid, you have to be constantly reading what is happening, or you get left behind. And that's you got to look at the bigger picture of things. And when you're looking at the jersey patch deal, or you're looking at the NIL rev share going into that right away, or different NIL funds that you can donate, or different things around town that can donate. That's where we start. And, Harper hit on it too. He's talked about the momentum that Vegas has right now. You got the Raiders, you got the Golden Knights, you have the Aces, you have the A's coming, you have the NBA coming, you have the NCAA CFP championship coming in 2027, the Final Four coming in 2028. You have the Super Bowl coming in 2029, and he framed it basically the way it is, the way it needs to be. It's all a massive opportunity for UNLV to grow its brand back to what it once was with the Nikes that everyone is actually talking about right now on social media because of what Michigan had been doing before kind of the 10-point win that they had today, or the 6-point win they had today, excuse me. So UNLV has to double down on that double down on this moment right now. You have to hit the expansion growth of what this town is doing. And he's right. Las Vegas is a sports and entertainment capital of the world. Everybody knows that. And UNLV's positioned to capitalize it if they do things right. You get the right guys. You get the right coach like Josh Pastner who can sell the program. You get the right coach like Dan Mullen who can sell the program. But, this is the honest part that I want to talk about this challenge. Because of all that momentum is also competition. Every dollar a Las Vegas business or booster is considering to put into a sports NIL fund, like UNLV is asking for, is also a dollar being asked for by the Raiders, by the Knights, the Aces, the A's, the new NBA franchise. Like, there's competition. And in that landscape, college basketball has to fight for its share. And even within UNLV athletics, football is the flagship right now. UNLV is not a basketball school anymore. It is a football school. Football fills Allegiant Stadium, football gets the attention, and football gets the first call when it's for NIL, rev sharing, anything that comes with it. Pastner has said it himself plainly. He said that he has said to get out, he has to get out there. He has to hustle for money like it's a door-to-door salesman, rolling up his sleeves, knocking on doors, and doing whatever it takes to fund the roster. And I respect that. It's honesty. It's transparency. It's what fans want to hear. But also filling that means winning games. Which, Pastner had a winning record this year, so that's not necessarily a shot at Pastner. But it means filling the Thompson Mack, putting exciting teams on the floor, playing the brand of basketball that he wants that fans can buy into. Not having 4,500 fans at a game, having 10,000, 12,000, like 15,000 like we had under Kruger and Dave Rice. It's filling those windows. And, that's respectable, and he knows that. He's a coach who understands what exactly this era of college basketball is operating in and what he needs to do. But sometimes, hustling's not enough if there's no infrastructure behind them that's built to compete. And you can be the most charismatic recruiter in the country. You can be the best salesman in the country, and you still lose players to programs that have committed NIL money that's sitting and ready to play at any moment when your portal window opens. Example, Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn. I mean, look at what just happened. Look at what just happened this cycle. You're going to lose Dre. You're going to lose Benarby. You're going to lose Shea. The resources may not have been enough to keep what they wanted, but it's going to be enough to have the opportunity to grow and develop into a roster that we've talked about in our last couple episodes of what they need and what they need to hit. The opportunity is absolutely here. The city is growing, the brand's growing, the House settlement gave UNLV the framework to pay players directly and compete in this new era, but the framework and opportunity are also future tense. Pastner needs to build everybody knows it, Pastner needs to build a tournament level roster right now in this new Mountain West. That's going to be a 1 or 2 bid league, and the investment needs to match the moment. And programs that invest, retain, and build are going to be programs that aren't going to go through the resets like UNLV has the last 2, 3, 4 years. You're not going to lose 13 guys. And UNLV's right at that line. If they can end up retaining, a Isaac Williamson and a Laji Nabelli and Emmanuel Steffen to go with Tyrin Jones, you got 4 pieces right there that you can build around. But you got to make sure that you open that window too for them to be successful. Let's kind of hit on like the NCAA tournament urgency as well and why all this matters. Because in in the day-to-day of a portal season, it's easy to lose sight of what the actual goal is. Obviously, UNLV, well made aware, has not made the NCAA tournament since 2013. That's 13 years. That's not a rough patch. That is a generation of fans who have grown up watching this program hover in the same space. Not irrelevant, but never threatening either. Not rebuilding, but also never rebuilt at the same time. Seasons start, every year. Optimism, new messaging, new faces. Then March arrives, and you're in the same endless feeling that's exactly the same as the year before. And here's what makes the Mount West so unforgiving. Going forward, I mean, not the past, but going forward. There's a chance it's a one-bid league. There's a chance it's only a two-bid league. You're not going to have any type of at-large safety net if you can't win your non-conference games and get teams to play you. There's going to be no more moral victory or going to the NIT, to make yourself feel good because you finished third and you hope the committee noticed that you finished third in a potential two-bid league. You're going to have to win the conference tournament or you're going to go home. And that's just how it's going to be in the new Mountain West. Every close game in February that slips away because you can't secure a defensive rebound is going to matter. Every portal miss of guys you're going to try to go after is going to matter. There's no margin for error. And UNLV's been eating in that margin for over a decade, really now. So now when you think about what that means for this specific offseason, UNLV didn't make the NCAA tournament with Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn being their best player. One of the top 20 scorers in the entire country, averaging 20.7 points per game, and it wasn't enough, which means you have to get to the tournament next year. Which means to get to the tournament next year, Pastner doesn't need to just maintain and, he needs to get guys that are going to build and retain and get significantly better. And on top of that, have a roster with depth and pieces and guys that fit and don't get hurt and play with each other. And, we've seen this Dre movie year after year after year. For 3 years, Bryce Hamilton was the program's best player. Tremendous scorer, high volume, engine of the offense. It was never enough to get over the hump. Like I mentioned before, 3 years of waiting for somebody better to come through the portal and just never happened while he was here. Same thing with Didon. You wasted 2 years of Didon Thomas Jr., who's, as of tonight, was taking meetings with Kentucky after leaving LSU. You can't let this cycle continue to repeat itself. Tyrin Jones is the real building block, but a building block that's only as good as what you build around it. You need to have a team around him. He's only going to be good as the team around him. He can only do so much with what the team is around him is. The fans, the diehards, the Twitter diehards, the fans that live in the Thomas and Mack, the fans that have been showing up to Thomas and Mack deserve more than just another evaluation year. Let's try again year 3. They deserved a program that makes the NCAA tournament. Not someday, soon. Year 2 is supposed to be the test of what this program can be. This offseason is going to determine that and see if that test is even passable. And so let's be specific, because vague optimism is how fan bases get let down every single year. So let's kind of hit again what this team needs. We kind of hit ferocious rebounder. Now you need and like I mentioned, that is not priority number 1, in my opinion. You need to find somebody mean on the glass, wants to play with the grit and toughness, the nasty, ferocious, a rebounder who makes opponents earn every single second chance point because he's going to make them pay physically down there. The kind of player who changes the energy of a game because he's playing so hard. He's diving on a loose floor. I mean, just how hard he competes in those dirty areas that nobody wants to get into. That's where grit and toughness starts. Not in a speech, on the glass, on the court, every single night. You need a leader like that. Number 2, obviously, with Dre being gone, you need a lead guard. You lose Dre, you lose Miles Shea. There's nobody on the roster, if Isaac Williamson doesn't return, capable of running this offense for 30-plus minutes a night. Not one player. So Pastner needs a high-caliber guard who can create off the dribble, control pace, and be the guy when the shot clock is winding down and everything's on the line. Without a player like that, nobody on the roster functions the way they're supposed to. Now it's prime example of this year. Until Dre, developed into the player that he was towards the end of the season, you need a lead guard. You need an alpha. That's not a lead guard that I mean though. You need a point guard who's going to run your team and control and settle things down when things get rough. Number 3 is what I mentioned before, is a starting wing who can shoot. It's well known the Rebels shot 31.8% from 3 as a team last year. That number has to improve dramatically. You need a 6'6", 6'5", bigger wing who can defend and knock it down at a 35, 38, 40% clip. And changes the offense. Having a shooter like that changes what this offense needs and changes the dynamic, creates a threat for Dre to drive, or a lead guard to drive, or a scorer to drive and get to the basket, or Tyrin Jones. If Tyrin Jones he's gonna develop and work on his game, but if he's not a consistent 3-point shooter, you need to have those shooters on the floor that create driving lanes for him to be able to be an animal and dunk on people and get to the rim and be able to finish. I would say that's probably like I mentioned before, probably your priority number 3. Number 4, you need like I mentioned, if you have a lead guard, you need another veteran defensive wing or guard, someone who can stay and guard the best players in the Mountain West and eliminate the consistent scrambling of help and rotations, and just be able to be the lockdown guy that you guys need every single night. Pastner's had that. He's had it at Memphis. He had it with Jose Alvarado at Georgia Tech. That's what he needs, a veteran guard who can be the team's lockdown defender. They gave up 52% shooting inside the arc last year. That's because they were constantly getting beat, layups, no help, and guys couldn't stay in front of guys and couldn't stay out of foul trouble. So you need to have at least one defensive-minded guard that can lock down, who's a veteran, who knows I'm going to take the best player every single night. And that's kind of, goes with the grit and toughness that Pastner talks about. I would say piece number 5 is a stretch 4. You need another Kamani Hamilton. You need a versatility now that Hamilton's obviously he's gone. So his front court and versatility and his scoring is not going to replace itself. So you need like a 6'8" forward who can score kind of at multiple levels like Kamani could, and be able to defend in space and be a serviceable defender. Because without that, your front court is going to become one-dimensional, and opposing defenses are just going to attack the paint, get your big in foul trouble every time. So you need to be able to have, someone to complement a Tyrin Jones. You need a shooter, like I mentioned, but you need another piece that's going to be able to complement Tyrin as well. And I think my last piece, which is number 6, is you need to have point guards. We can't go another year without a point guard on the roster. You need at least 2. Because we already know what happens when they get hurt. We watched it this year. That can't happen again. That's a list, in my opinion. A mean, ferocious rebounder, a lead guard, a wing shooter, a defensive stalwart guard, a stretch 4, and 2 point guards. That's 6, I would say, legitimate needs that you need in this cycle where everybody's competing for the same players, with NIL driving every decision. And none of it, and I mean none of it, happens without investment in what they have and the infrastructure that's being built. The opportunity's there to invest, but Pastner needs the resources right now, and we'll see how much they want to invest and what happens going forward. But yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at right now, and that's where we're kind of at, in my opinion, on today, April 6th. Like we just talked about, the graduated players that they lost: Hamilton, Fleming, Brown, and Al Green. In the portal right now is DGL, Miles Shea, Nas Cunningham, Mason Adabon, and Jacob Narby. The only returning player right now is Tyrin Jones. And then obviously we haven't heard anything about Isaac Williamson, Laji Thambeli, and Emmanuel Steffen. So like we said, we only have one confirmed returner right now. Same situation Pastner walked into last year, except now the grace period's gone. The evaluation year is over, and year 2 is supposed to be a test year, in my opinion. And right now, the conditions for passing the test year are not there yet. They're not in place yet. The framework exists. The late season identity was real, what they were trying to build. Tyrin Jones is a genuine building block. A healthy Laji Dembele could be a revelation. The city is growing. The brand is growing. NIL infrastructure is finally being built the right way. Harper has a vision for what UNLV can become. So we need to see if that vision's right and can lead this team back to the NCAA tournament. Because framework, potential, and growing brands don't make the NCAA tournament every year. The players do. Toughness does. Rebounding's being secured in the second half of close games do. Pasteur's preached, grit and toughness since day one when he walked in the door. The numbers from last year tell us the message didn't always make it to the floor, and we saw that on film. We saw that in games we went to, games I covered, games you guys watched. Now, now he has to go out and he needs to build a roster that does, where toughness is not a talking point, but a physical reality of what every single night entails, where opponents do not get 3 looks at one possession, where close games are won because the team simply plays harder than the other one every single night. And where university, the athletic department, and the community are all aligned behind the same goal. We got to get the Rebels. We got to do what we can to get the Rebels back to the NCAA tournament. Because you know what? 13 years has been long enough. The opportunity is here. And Las Vegas is the sports capital of the world right now. This brand can be what it once was in the 90s, like Harper talked about. But none of that matters if the decisions being made in the next few days and weeks are not the right ones. So go get it. We'll be tracking every move, every portal addition, every announcement right here. I'll do a podcast updates on when we see things, updating roster moves, talking about everything. The roster update at the top of every episode will reflect where things actually are, just kind of like we did with football. Obviously, I'll be tweeting, writing about those things as well. But as always, thank you guys. Like and subscribe. Please promote. Please, thank you guys for always supporting. My name's Mike for the Scarlet Standard. Like I always say, stay loud, stay loyal, bring back Hey Reb, and go Rebels.